All right, what is going on, everyone? And welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast as we are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to discuss the latest offseason news and rumors in New York Mets land. But before we get into that, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for new episodes of our show that are regularly recorded now live every Friday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live, which also includes live reactions to off-season moves that are not available on audio, but only on our YouTube channel. For those of you in here as well, make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok for more content over there. For our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all your favorite listening platforms to not miss new episodes of our podcast that go up at 9 a.m. the following day of recording. Also, make sure to give us a 5-star review. It would be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's get into episode number 183 of our show. And it is a new year. Andrew, 2026. The threshold is now passed. We're going to get into some stuff from 2025 that transpired because we just missed a week of our show, and I will get into the explanation as to why. But Andrew, good to see you here. We're chilling right now because, again, the off-season news, very, very quiet.
Yeah, again, we haven't done a show, and it seems like we haven't done one at least in a solid year, and nothing's happened. No moves. A couple of the Japanese guys have moved. Guy like Murakami, we saw Mai sign yesterday. We expect Akamoto to sign tomorrow. So again, the Japanese market has moved, from at least for agents' perspective. The MLB free agents again does what they always do, and it's the Scott Boras guys plus Kyle Tucker still hanging around there. It's the new year, and we have not heard anything. Hopefully, we start to see something. While also the trade market, again, has none. The Marlins have traded their center fielder to the Reds. Maybe entails a potentially a target that we're going to talk about tonight, taking them out of the market. But really, it's been that kind of slow pace, once every blue moon signing. Hell, we got a Christmas Day extension. Tyler Soderstrom signs an extension on Christmas. No one saw that coming. But yet, again, it's just kind of a slow pace, snail pace that we've gotten used to as fans, and we'll see what happens. It would be nice to have a, date that everybody should be signing like in every other sport. The day of free agency opens, usually everyone signs that day. But again, those are in cap leagues, and this is not a cap league, and hopefully it doesn't ever becomes a cap league. But again, every fan, and especially everybody here, would love to have constant, an actual crazy day of signings. But it's just how it is. And again, we're less than 45 days to spring training, so hey, we're getting close to watching baseball again in this new year.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. We saw some things come in some waves. I mean, obviously, the winter meetings was definitely slow. We saw the reliever market move a little bit before, the holiday break or whatever started. But either way, we don't know what the factors are as to why this market is slow. Could it be Scott Boras? Could it be the qualifying offer slowing guys down? Could it be the impending lockout as to why guys are hesitant to do long-term contracts, as to what is going to be allowed or whatnot? We don't know. Either way, we are here to discuss the latest that has been going on. But as for recently, like I said, it's been very, very slow. So it was a good opportunity to miss a show. So it was good timing. Obviously, with it over the holiday season, didn't want to do so, and I'll get into that in a second. But either way, let's bring in some special guests who are going to be joining us for today's episode. And this is also to keep this duo from being subjected to watching the New York Rangers get blown up by the Panthers at the Winter Classic. They have been on this show plenty times before. Please help us welcome back Evan and Matt for the Mets Central Podcast. Guys, great to have you here. Great to have you back. Happy New Year. I hope you guys had a good holiday as well. And we're back for a new era, a new series of culture changing moves that are now going to include 2026. So, Evan, I guess I'll go to you first. Welcome back.
Yeah, happy New Year to everyone. It's great to be back. Great to talk about this instead of watching the Rangers right now, like Carson said, getting absolutely shit canned probably. But yeah, off season's moving slow, and we still got to wait on the additional series of culture changing moves.
Yeah, we need a lot of guys to set the market, to be honest, and a lot of the key guys on this market. Most of them have been bats, or some of them haven't been the five tool players or the top guys. It's also very top heavy free agency as well, and we all know that usually one position is very loaded in comparison to some other seasons. We know that next year that free agency with the starting pitching, obviously, and we're going to get into some of that as well later on, because the Mets still have not made any changes to their rotation yet. But either way, I do have a little bit of explaining to do. Like I said, we missed the last 2 weeks here on Mets Weekly. And I'm going to try to keep this story as short and sweet as I can. So I would say about a few days before Christmas, I was prepping the show, this episode 183. And it was supposed to be on a Saturday instead of a Friday, because there was supposed to be a big storm that was coming on Friday near my area that the week before, when we had that episode, knocked out my power for like 5 minutes. For those of you who tuned in live for that last episode that we did, I was not on the screen for when the intro stopped playing, so I had to reconfigure my internet, get back on there, and that was a windstorm that basically knocked that out. There was going to be a snowstorm, so I didn't want to take any chances. Went over to Saturday. On Friday, I think it was the day after Christmas, so the 26th, I woke up with immense pain and had to end up going to the hospital. And it turned out that it was early stage appendicitis, and I needed to have my appendix removed. So then with the pain that came after that, I was like, you know what? We're just going to scratch it this week. There's not really much news that, we can catch up on this. And I pushed it all the way down to this. Now I'm fine now. Luckily, in the condition that I was in, it was early stage, so it was not it was probably the best case scenario it could have possibly gone, especially with the lack of news. I wasn't missing much, but we're back now, so we're good. There's just, some aches here and then. If you guys see me, collapse on the floor because of some certain condition, I think it's what we're going to say is we're going to recap this out as Jeff McNeil got traded and he stole my appendix. Okay, I think that's what we're going to map this one up to, and that's what it's going to go into as the history books. But Matt, you're here as well. Like we said, I mean, it's just. The offseason just continues to drone on. I mean, it really has. We're seeing a sprinkling here and then. It's hard to be patient, obviously, when we see the current condition that this team is in. But again, the finished product will be the finished product, and I don't think it's going to be what this team looks like as of right now.
Yeah, first of all, always good to be back here streaming with you guys, because I know every time we do a collaborative live stream together, it's always a fun episode. Whatever happens, whatever jokes get thrown around, whatever humor is made, it's always a great episode when all four of us are on here. And and also Happy New Year's to everybody, of course. Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you guys celebrate. And good to see you that you're doing well, Carson, because I'm sure you were probably in a lot of pain. So yeah, good to see that you're doing a lot better. And yeah, I mean, like you were basically saying, like everyone else is saying on here, the offseason has been very slow up until this point. I know the Mets were very active at the beginning of the offseason, in terms of, getting rid of guys. I know they made a couple signings here and there. Polanco came in, Devin Williams came in, Luke Weaver came in. Obviously, they got Marcus Semien from the Texas Rangers in return for Brandon Nimmo. And yeah, I mean, other than that, like Andrew stated, other than some of the Japanese guys signing like Murakami and Imai yesterday, it's not been a whole lot. But I mean, it's also crazy the fact that because it just felt like the season ended yesterday, and the fact that we're only like 38 days away from pitchers and catchers reporting, and then also as well, we're gonna have the World Baseball Classic later, next month. It's crazy how fast we're kind of approaching on the season, and the fact that kind of this team still has a little bit of holes on this team. I'm not really too concerned because I trust that Stearns will make the right additions to iron out this team, but next season's approaching on us very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, again, we know that, it's not opening day tomorrow, but again, there is still a lot of moves that they need to make, and we'll see how they end up approaching that. We've already seen them make 2 trades, one as a salary dump and one as a bad salary for bad salary. But Andrew, we've talked about this quite a few times of they were going to make a lot of trades this offseason, and they were going to make a lot of changes. And we've talked about this a lot. Obviously, again, we were live for, I think that was one of the last streams that we did. We were live for, obviously, the Jeff McNeil trade and everything. And I feel like we're going to talk about this a lot throughout this entire show of, what went wrong in 2025 or the years before that. But again, it does show you a little bit of perspective of how the Mets ways have, I'm not trying to say like evolved yet, because they haven't really done anything yet, but like how the Mets ways are kind of viewed from the outside point. Because if you talk to Mets fans of a certain player that was just traded, the latest move that they just made, they will tell you that Jeff McNeil is a great player and he's very versatile and he won a batting title. And what did it just get you back? You know what I mean? Like it just kind of shows you how the Mets are seen and viewed, of how their old ways or from old regimes are viewed in certain value. And maybe it's just time for the Mets to let that go. I mean, Andrew, we've talked about this core. We've talked about this group. We've talked about letting guys go with what they have not won anything. And whether people disagree with it or not, I don't see any accomplishments to hang your hat on at all. I just don't see it.
Yeah. And again, it's what it is. And again, we'll talk about the McNeil deal. Again, everyone's like, oh, Jeff McNeil, he's so versatile. Again, and this is from our, like you said about our family. Oh, he's so versatile. Oh, he could play this. He's 95 years old, but he could play left field. He could play center field. He can, go ride a giraffe if he wants. He's so versatile. But yet, Major League Baseball said, you know what you're worth? Some Santo Domingo 15-year-old who's probably, learning ABCs for the first time, and that's all you get for him. Like, that's the value what MLB said.
And you had to pay them to take him, too.
You paid them. Pirates need a second baseman. Oh, let's pivot to the better version of Brandon Lowe. Okay, that would have been. Seattle is looking for the second baseman. They're probably going to end up with either Brendan Donovan or Ketel Marte. That's been a team that's been linked to Jeff McNeil since I was, a child. But guess what? They still didn't want him. Of course, they want the better option, the younger version in Brandon Donovan, but just a better overall player in Ketel Marte. So he looked at the market, and this is a guy who's only guaranteed a 1-year deal. Yes, he has the option, but again, team doesn't have to pick that up. It was a 1-year, 15, 14, whatever, low teens deal. I already forgot about talking about Jeff McNeil because he's dead to us. None really to worry about. But again, it was a 1-year, $13 million deal, and Major League Baseball said, yeah, we don't want this dude. Like, his versatility is fine. He's not good at it. He's not great at position. He's probably best position at second base. He's fine in left field. I sure as hell don't want him in center field, but that was just how bad Cedric Mullins, Nairo Taylor was, that he was, well, he's the best bat in center field, but he's still not good defensively. Like, he got burnt, obviously, in the Phillies. Like, it was only a matter of time before eventually he got burnt, and he got burnt in the Phillies series and whatever. So my thing is, like, again, from what Mets, and this is with every fan base. Fans over-evaluate their own players. when you get to the open market, you see how the rest of Major League Baseball views your players. And it's like, oh my God, we could have got more. You could have got a lot for him after, he won the batting title. And, when the Mariners were very interested. You could have got, a pitching prospect, when before they became the stars that they are. You could have maybe gotten that guy potentially down the line coming off the batting title. But it's also, like you said, with the past regime, these past regimes not knowing to asset manage, not selling high on a guy that, okay, maybe it's sustainable, but why risk it when his value is at his peak? Trade it. No, got to extend it. Got to extend everybody. And everybody and their mother got an extension except, the Kool-Aid Bear. And look what happened. Now they're all gone. Diaz, Nimmo, McNeil, they're all gone. So he got rid of the Epler stench. We've seen him bring in a couple other guys. Again, we're playing baseball in next month. So, eventually he's going to have to bring in, David Stearns has not been aggressive. He is, again, waiting the market out, which is fine. But I've always believed in if you love a player and you want the player, if you pay and it's free agency, you're going to have to pay a little more. You can wait and try to get the better deal, but you're also risking an opportunity of maybe there's some other teams are thinking the same thing that are maybe in a better situation. And if you're down to, hey, go to the team that just won the World Series and the Blue Jays or us, most free agents are going to look at the team that was just in the World Series and say, okay, maybe that's a little bit better landing spot than the team that just collapsed and, as the whole locker room fighting UFC style in the locker room after game. So, you got to love it.
I mean, listen, we'll see where this market takes us because we still don't know if it's been set and it's already, like we said, it's past the 2026 threshold. We're in a new year now. And usually you have more of a better understanding as to what direction every team is going to be going in. And as for here in the chat, there was a comment from Daniel Caps earlier saying that, and what do you know, another player the mainstream media said the Mets were linked to is not a Met. They have no clue what Stearns is going to go. We don't. We have no idea where he's going to go because every single time when we see the Mets attached to someone or they checked in on someone or they're interested in someone, we almost never see the guys that they actually end up signing that they were attached to him. We did not hear anything about Jorge Polanco. We heard almost next to nothing about Luke Weaver. I know people made the jokes about how former Yankee, he's going to be a Met. Devin Williams is the only guy that was, actually linked to Stearns because they have a history together in Milwaukee. There's guys that just come out of nowhere. Nobody has any inkling whatsoever, and I kind of like it under wraps that way because compared to the way that the Wilpons like to leak things out and how toxic it could be. But again, it more just leaves us in the dark and more of just kind of trying to put these puzzle pieces together of what would they be looking for on the trade market? What would they be looking for on the free agent market? And I think we all knew that the writing was on the wall that Jeff McNeil was going to be dealt. I think we all knew, especially when we saw them trade Nimmo for his replacement. Like that's basically how I saw it. They traded Brandon Nimmo for Jeff McNeil's replacement to open up the outfield, with the outfield market being available and the outfield market on the trade market as well. So either way, Jeff McNeil is gone. I do want to do a little bit of a rundown of the guy that we got in return. Put a bow on this the best way that we know how, with obviously Jeff McNeil being the final piece to that 2029 team and homegrown core gone. So he has been traded to the Athletics for right-handed prospect Yordan Rodriguez. The Mets are going to be covering $5.75 million of McNeil's $15 million salary, which is, I think, $12 million in the luxury tax, and it will be a $7.75 million luxury tax hit for the Mets in retained salary on the Mets 2026 payroll. And the Mets will be giving him a $2 million buyout if his 2027 club option is declined by the A's. As for Yordan Rodriguez, he's 17 years old. Nobody knows what he is going to be, but as for the rundown, not that bad of a return, even though he's 17 years old. Plenty of upside. Usually 17-year-olds have upside. That's kind of more how it works. 6'3", 190. He had a 400K signing bonus. He posted a 2.93 earned run average across only 15.1 innings in the Dominican Summer League, which he debuted in the A's organization. He has been scouted as a low effort delivery from a 3/4 arm angle. He has above average extension, obviously with him being 6'3", he can get that perceived velocity. Fastball sits 92, 93, tops 96 miles an hour, which obviously can grow with him being 17 years old. He has a low 80s slider that already has a well above average amount of RPMs, over 2,600 RPMs, and he was ranked in the top 20 pitching prospects from the 2025 international class. So Yordan Rodriguez is the last, overgoing piece from this core. It's done. It is finished. Pete Alonso, gone. Brandon Nimmo, gone. Jeff McNeil, gone. And we're going to get a little bit into this core as to why they needed to blow this thing up. I think we've talked about it many, many times before. But as for all of the examples and all of the information that is out there, I think that when it comes to either Nimmo or Alonso or McNeil, any homegrown guys that they have let go from that 2019 team,
And his power shit in the bed again.
as to
Carson.
why. They still need to fill. Obviously, they still need to fill in pieces. Am I lagging? I don't know.
Yeah.
Am I lagging?
Yeah, you
You're
got
was
it.
lagging.
I think
Okay.
you're good now.
Okay, I'm good now. Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah.
Go in and out. But either way, I think that this was the right decision to move on from this core. Personally, I was okay with them bringing whatever they wanted to bring back, but when you look at it in totality of 7 years with this group of players, of the resources that have been put into it, they had to move on. It had to go. And Evan, Matt, I'll turn this over to you if you guys want to bounce off each other here. If you are a Rangers fan, you'd understand this. David Stearns, whether you agree with it or not, he did what Chris Drury didn't have the balls to do.
Yeah.
Evan?
They're not delaying the inevitable, which is nice because, like you just said with the Rangers, they delayed the inevitable and now they're sitting in the spot where you don't know what to do. But that's besides the point. With the Mets, though, the reason why I never wanted them to even bother with bringing back the core really is because of, like you said, 7 years now of failure. Forget about just like in the playoffs or anything. They couldn't win the division once as a group. And
No.
Met fans are like crying and ready to kill David Stearns because how dare he break up a core that at most got 86 wins or 101 wins, I guess, in 2022. And then what happened in the playoffs that year. But I digress. They needed to make the changes. And if you delay this, then you're just going to find yourself in purgatory and you're just going to find Steve Cohen spending money on a team that's not going to win. Would you rather spend the money on a team that does not have the capability to win? Or would you rather spend the money experimenting something new and find out? I think it's very obvious what the choice would be if you're the owner. When you're giving all this money, pouring all these resources into these players that are not getting the job done for you. So the whole thing, and yeah, exactly what Darren's saying, 2 postseasons in 7 years with only one deep run, which was with Stearns at the helm either way. And that's the guy that everyone wants dead right now. But I understand, it sucks to see these homegrown guys go, but at the end of the day, this is what needed to be done. And, we'll get to the Alonso quote later, but when you hear the mentality of these players, and we talked about it how many times throughout the season where they're like, too much talent in the room, too much talent.
Yeah.
And it's just like, shut up and give the results. I don't give a fuck about the talent if you're not giving the results. Yeah. And do we remember as well. The 8th inning problem, how every time they were trailing going into the 8th inning, 0-70 this year, not one comeback win all season. But this is a group that deserves another chance. I don't care that they brought in new coaches, because that was the only argument that for bringing them back is see what they do with new coaches. Okay, but at the same time, there's something to be said about, and even though they've had shitty coaches in the past, there's something to be said about through 7 years, they've had, 3 or 4 different managers? They've had how many different hitting coaches throughout this time? It's like, when is enough enough?
This is the thing, and when we see comments like this, Strike Blitz, and listen, he's been in our chat before, and he's had some really good points in here, but when we see comments like this, I can easily rebuttal this, where people say, well, if we supplemented our core with quality pitching, we would have been better off. They got you, they got you Max Scherzer. They got you Justin Verlander. Like,
what about 2019 when they had DeGrom and Wheeler in the rotation?
This is the thing. Like, they had pitching with this same core. They gave this core everything. In 2021 they gave you Francisco Lindor. In 2021, in 2022 they gave you Max Scherzer. 2023 Justin Verlander. Then they get Juan Soto, and they bring in all of these veteran guys who are proven winners. I mean, how many times? It has nothing to do with just 2025. This group just doesn't win. And I'll get into the main reason as to why I'm glad that they moved on from this, and I am glad that they went way past just the coaching changes. But Matt, I mean, I'll let you, cue in here as well. I mean, it's just, I don't know how many times we can do this of, well, this little part works. This player did well individually. Let's keep him. It comes to a point, it was like 7 years. The mentality needs to change too.
Yeah, look, and this is basically everything that Evan was saying and everything that you guys have been saying over the past couple of years with this with this core. We were delaying the inevitable with this core, because it was clear from, not even just last year, but there were signs from 22, 23, even 2021 that this team, this group of players, they did not have it as a group to ultimately achieve the main goal of winning the World Series. And this core was lucky, because there was probably multiple times earlier in the years and throughout the life cycle of this core that this team should have been broken up. Because look, you could have argued after Steve Cohen bought the team after the 2020 season that maybe that was the time to reset everything and, go in the direction of doing what the Dodgers did in terms of, building up the young farm system and really pushing through the youth instead of going out and just throwing money or making these big time trades to acquire star players. They didn't do that. That team, after failing to miss the playoffs in 2020, which I think all of us, if we were going to go back to how the season ended in 2019, we were probably all expecting that team to make the playoffs in the 2020 expanded playoffs. They didn't. What happened? They got rewarded with a guy in Francisco Lindor. They fell again in 2021. What happens? They get rewarded again with Max Scherzer, Ketel Marte, Eduardo Escobar, Mark Hanna. Again, they have a good season, like on the face of it, but again, come down the stretch, they collapse. They lose the division on the second to last series of the season, and they get bounced early in 3 against the Padres. And again, what happens? They get rewarded. They go out there, they sign Justin Verlander, they sign Kodai Senga, they re-sign Edwin Diaz, they re-sign Jeff McNeil. And then again, they fail. They take a little bit of a step back in 2024. And realistically, because we've all brought this up, that 2024, if they didn't go on the magical run, that was the offseason. That was the year where everything was going to get torn apart. But because 2 aging veterans, and like we've stated throughout all these podcast episodes, because those 2 aging veterans in JD Martinez and Jose Iglesias came in and saved the team, that was the main reason that everything got pushed towards, what eventually is happening now in this offseason. And again, like, this is the main thing that we've been talking about. It's like, if it takes 2 aging veterans, 2 guys that are pretty much on the decline, and 2 guys that have seen their better days go past them, if those are the two guys that are keeping a clubhouse together, and those are the two guys that are motivating those guys to go out there and perform to their level, well, then I'm sorry. Again, and this is something we've been stating before, then your group, your interior, your main core guys are not good enough, and they don't have the stones or the balls to take that team to the next level. And then we saw what happened last year, because again, they go to the NLCS, they lose in 6 games. They get rewarded again with Juan Soto, the highest paid contract in Major League Baseball history, the highest paid contract in professional sports. And again, they collapse down the stretch. So again, it's like this was eventually coming to a head, because there's only so many times that you could fail and not be held accountable. Because again, we've seen it with the Rangers. How many times did they come up short? And again, no accountability. You just go out there, run out again, and eventually that gets you to where that team is right now, which is in purgatory. And again, why would you buy into a group of guys? Why would you buy into a core that you know is not good enough to win? So, and listen, I get that Stearns he's made a lot of moves that the fan base has criticized him. Look, to me, I do not care that he got rid of these guys. I'm glad that he got rid of these guys. Now listen, the difference is, okay, cool, he got rid of these guys. My main thing is now, is he going to replace those guys with the right type of players, those winning players, which this franchise has lacked the last couple of years? That is the main difference, because I've seen so many things throughout Twitter saying, how could the Mets get rid of all these homegrown guys? If the Mets go out next year and have a good season and win, I'm kind of going to be a little disappointed, because they don't have those, those young, or not those young, but those homegrown guys like Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil and Brandon Nimmo. And I look at it, I'm like, I do not care if my team is assembled by homegrown guys or they're assembled through guys by trades or free agency. I could get a group of 26 guys that are from fucking Mars or from the next dimension over.
Yeah.
I don't care where these players are from. I just want the 26 best available players on my roster to go out and win a championship. I don't care where they're from. So again,
and that's the thing.
Just to wrap it up.
That's the thing, that it's like the Mets haven't even found that first step yet. They have been to the playoffs in back-to-back seasons twice in franchise history. That's how many times they have shown somewhat sustainable winning. And the most recent time when they went back-to-back into the postseason, they spent 3 hours in it in 2016, losing in the wild card. So again, they have not had this sustainable success, and it shows, especially with this core as well. And it all goes to leadership as well, because everybody talks about an organization. They can't figure it out. They can't find their footing. Maybe they take a step forward, but then they take a step back. That's because of leadership. And like we saw so many times before with the rotating GMs coming in and out and in and out, with this core here, and first it was the Wilpons, the ownership, then it was the management, then it was managers coming in and out. Like, what was the most common denominator with all of this stretch? It was these players. And I'm going to tell you right now, even though I want to put it behind me, it has to be shown as to why and what went wrong so it doesn't go wrong again. This group of players, this core of homegrown guys, I can tell you right now, like I said with leadership, none of them are leaders. None of them. None of them are leaders. And I will tell you this exactly as to why I know this. And I will give you plenty of examples as to why, but let me cap this off the best way that I know how. Pete Alonso went on foul territory about, a week and a half ago. And he said that, and talked about, the ending of the Mets in 2025. And when you talk about this from the point of view of a guy who was in the locker room and in that locker room for 7 years, it almost makes you think, who the hell is the voice in that locker room and what is the mentality of this franchise for the last 7 years. And to be honest, when I hear this, it shows. So here's Pete Alonso on foul territory with Eric Kratz. I'm going to play the clip right here.
You've seen the fact that they traded Nimmo, they didn't bring Diaz, Edwin back. You're not back. Did you foresee that coming last year, how the season ended, or is it something that you've been surprised about?
I mean, it's kind of like a philosophical thing where it's like, hey, that's just what they wanted to do. But if you think on it, like 2025, it just came down to one game. It came down to one game, and there was a ton of guys hurt. Where I feel like if they weren't, that would have put us in a better situation. And you can't control injuries. Like we had a ton of arms that weren't necessarily healthy, and it's just that plagued us. And again, it was like a one game not in the playoff situation where I feel like maybe if it was like I don't know, but again, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because it's not my choice, not my decision.
Andrew, we have talked about this. By the way, that's Pete Alonso on foul territory with Eric Kratz a few weeks ago, or I think a week and a half ago. Andrew, we have talked about Pete Alonso. Great hitter, but there's nothing between the ears. There really isn't. Either way, I mean, how is that the mentality? Now, just not only with him saying that, but also now imagine that message being displayed throughout the entire locker room. Because that is full on delusion. And this isn't the first time that we've heard Pete Alonso say something that is basically unintentional rage bait because he has absolutely no idea what he's saying. I mean, Andrew, what the hell? You're kidding me, right? And listen, he's not a Met anymore. He's a Baltimore Oriole. But what was going on these last 7 years? That ain't a leader.
Again, it's the type of shit that happens with Alonso. It's like, well, I mean, if it's the truest, I mean, if you break it down from the most fundamental standpoint, yeah, Pete, if you win one game, if you would have won game 162, yeah, you're in the playoffs. You could have won like one of the 9,432 games you could, you didn't win after the 8th inning. I mean, it didn't have to come down to this, but the fact that, again, this is it's okay.
That's the starting pitching's fault, though.
Exactly. Oh, we got Frankie Montas. That's the reason. Maybe if Frankie Montas doesn't pitch one game, and maybe it's an extra Brandon Sprout or Nolan McClain, or maybe it's all of these what if
team.
If that. Well,
I was just saying if team.
If team.
Oh yeah, and Captain If. I mean, we make fun of Justin Herbert, he's king if. At least he's in the playoffs. At least he gets his team to the playoffs and carries it. Unlike other people, it's just if that's what this team was clinging on, like, oh, it's not that bad because then this lock again. The guys weren't good enough in the room. It shouldn't have came down to, hey, you're tied with the Cincinnati Reds, a team that had no right to be in the playoffs. And if you're that bad because, oh, you couldn't do this, well, if it's all about one game, then Pete, if that's what you're saying, then why couldn't you win that one game at Citi Field after the first series out of the All-Star break? You had to win. You could have won that, Pete, and then the game wouldn't matter. Again, we've made the jokes. I can no longer make those jokes because he's not here because I don't care about him. He's dead to me. I'm Tiki Barber. He's Saquon. I never need to care. I can never give a shit about Pete Alonso, which is beautiful. I don't have to fake cheer for him. It's amazing. Take his dumb ass. He's going to eat some crab legs and down in Baltimore and have fun. And guess what? When you guys, make the playoffs or miss the playoffs by one game, he's going to say the same thing because he's literally like a Russian nesting doll of just the same 7 things he says. He just opens it up and okay, which one it is? Okay, I say this today. I say this today. Like, again, I'm not saying I'm the smartest guy, but again, dumb can make fun of dumb. That's my rule. Fat can make fun of fat. Dumb can make fun of dumb. So it's all fair game. So have fun in Baltimore. Be the Cheeto bear that you are. And take your stupidity quotes and LFOO or whatever the hell you're going to call it.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes from the fact of who is the leader in that clubhouse. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that Lindor and Soto were, grade A leaders in 2025. We'll get into them in a second. But again, from every angle of what he just said, and I'll swing it over to you guys, but I mean, every angle, he's like, you can't control injuries. Well, in technical standpoint, actually, Pete, you kind of can, because wasn't it you who threw the ball over Kodai Senga's head? Which some people say was the derailing of this season, even though there was plenty other problems on this team that we were pointing out beforehand. But again, weren't you the guy that threw the ball over Kodai Senga's head? I mean, again, if that was the one factor that they needed, like that one specific detail, maybe they just weren't good enough. And it shows in their body of work. Like we said, no sustainability. A different team every single year, a different team every single month, to be honest. Offense inconsistent. You can't tell me that, oh, well, it was just the pitching and everything. It was only pitching. Pitching was an issue, 100% an issue. But you can't tell me that being 0-70 when behind after the 8th inning, you can't tell me that is all the pitching's fault. There was plenty of problems with this team. Plenty. And like I said, when push comes to shove, crunch time, they needed to win that one game. They didn't. They never did. In fact, and Evan, I'll swing this over to you. I mean, 2022, just one game in Atlanta. Just one game against San Diego. Just one game. All we needed was just one game. Probably just because you're not good enough. How many times are we going to do it?
I always talk about that quote too. It's one game. One game spirals into another game, and then it spirals into 10 games, and then it spirals into 20 games. So that's why when people say it's one game, I want to put my head through a wall. But it never should have came down to one game. Like Andrew said, if the difference was one game against the Cincinnati Reds, then your team's not good enough. You just came off an NLCS run, adding Juan Soto, and you were competing with the Reds when you had the second highest payroll instead of competing for the division. I'm sorry, you don't deserve another chance. They were never... you could count on one hand how many times they were actually in a realistic competition for the division, and they pissed it away both times. 2021, but that's because the NLE sucked. And 2022, and what happened there. But it was just one game, right? It was just one game in Atlanta. I don't know how many times we need to see the same movie before we realize this shit is just reoccurring with this team. Again, they had chances. They kept adding to this group. They rewarded this group despite them not being good enough time and time again. Like you said with Lindor, like you said with Scherzer, Verlander, even the depth guys like Marte, Escobar, Canna. Say what you will about Escobar, who sucked here, but nonetheless, they supplemented this group as much as possible, and it all came down to them. Every single time you could go and look at piss poor at bats from these guys. So if Pete Alonso wants to be naive and take that bullshit to Baltimore, have fun with that, because I'm glad that it's done here, because at the end of the day, shit like that pissed me off. It never should have came to that. You should be competing. The expectation going into the year was get back to where you were, if not further. And they didn't even get to the playoffs.
Yeah. After adding Juan Soto and having a $400 million payroll. Like, do we understand how embarrassing that is? To be like, oh, well, let's just bring back all the good players. They're good players, make good team. No. It's about the leadership with this team. And before I go to you, Matt, I'm just going to say, like we said with the leadership, if you go down through everything that this team was passed on to from officially when David Wright retired in 2018, the last leader and said captain on this team. This core, this homegrown core that he passed it down to. And of course, it was pieced down together one by one. There was plenty of guys who left during it, but there were guys who were part of it and contributed to the team not doing the best. Either way, if you look at that list of players, you had Pete Alonso, you had Jeff McNeil, Michael Conforto was on there for a little bit. You had Brandon Nimmo. You had Jacob deGrom. You had Zach Wheeler. You had Seth Lugo, Ahmed Rosario, Dominic Smith. All these guys, homegrown pieces. Not one of them was a leader. Not one leader came out of it. The guys who are homegrown, representing the organization since birth, since being drafted. Not one leader. Not a single leader. If you want to add in Noah Syndergaard, he was through a trade, so was Zach Wheeler, Steven Matz, Pete Alonso. It's just one game, bro. Just one game, bro. Jeff McNeil. We already know Jeff McNeil ain't a leader. And that's when the whole discussion about Francisco Lindor of people telling me, oh, well, he's the problem. Wasn't it Jeff McNeil who was the aggressor who didn't want to shift and didn't want to listen to direction to coordinators? Because he's a whiny little bitch and he always has been. Brandon Nimmo possibly getting upset that he couldn't be a captain and they would have to hold off and cater to his feelings and hold off from naming Lindor the captain. Michael Conforto, that guy said 15 words the entire time he was here. Ahmed Rosario, undisciplined, didn't work out. Neither did Dom Smith. Jacob deGrom, same thing with Zach Wheeler. They barely even spoke. Noah Syndergaard, whiny baby, still is. Steven Matz, hothead. Seth Lugo didn't even like New York. Not one leader. Not one leader. Not a single leader.
I just want to jump into, and how many times did we hear Brandon Nimmo say the words, I'm learning to be a leader? How many times did he say that during his time here?
How many times did we hear? Does anybody remember in 2020 when the Mets were in a 60-game season, couldn't even make the postseason with this group? In a 60-game season, by the way. And yes, I know there was 2 pitchers that were not available. One opted out, one got injured. Guys got injured. But again, when it came to Pete Alonso, he said with them underperforming, Mets fans, don't believe. No. Words of wisdom from our leader there, the so-called leader. Words of wisdom from him. Fantastic.
Sorry, Carson.
It shows. It just shows how either, on the field or off the field, how these guys are just, either way, they're not made for that moment. They will not come through. They do not come through when it matters. And when it comes to them on the field or anybody in that clubhouse, there were no leaders. And I can show you that there was no leaders in that clubhouse either with the homegrown core or for a majority of the time, because the most success from that clubhouse, the most they did was when we said Jose Iglesias, JD Martinez, 2022, the next best year that they had in comparison to all of these 7 years. You had Starling Marte come in, Eduardo Escobar, all these great veterans. None of these guys from this homegrown core who represented the organization since getting drafted here, who were developed. None of them are leaders. None of them are. And I'm not sitting here and saying that, oh, they were bad players. No one's saying they're bad players. Because if people give me Pete Alonso's home run total and RBI total, I don't care. But again, when it comes to everything about all of these guys, when it all comes down to it, none of them are leaders. Are the so-called leaders. Pete's not a captain. Nimmo's not a captain. McNeil certainly is not a captain. It just goes to show that the mentality of this franchise for the last 7 years, before the new ownership took over, not good enough. Just not good enough. And I'll give you another example. I'm sorry, Matt, that I'm cutting into your time here. I'll give you another example. Remember 2024 when Pete Alonso was underachieving in his contract year and he said, oh, well, I was an all-star. I was close to 40 home runs. I'm on close to a pace for 40 home runs. If that's what your main mentality is, that ain't a leader. I'm sorry, that isn't whatsoever. It just isn't. And it's not just about, oh, well, they have to win in order for them to be good leaders. What I'm saying is, show by example. Show by example. They don't do it when it matters. They don't step up when it matters. They never do. They never have.
No, and look, that was one of the most embarrassing quotes, one of the most delusional quotes that I've ever heard from a professional athlete, because if you gave me that quote and you didn't tell me it was Pete Alonso and you just gave me a word-for-word transcript of that quote, I would have thought that was a Mika Zibanejad quote, because that sounds like the exact same shit that he would have spewed, it's one of those quotes where it's like, oh, I don't care, I don't care if we win or lose, or I don't care if we play good or bad. It's just, if we win, fine. But if we lose, oh no, then we didn't play well. No, that should never be the mentality. The mentality is to always put your best foot forward and to go out there and try to win games. And, I could very easily go out here and disprove this one game that it came down to one game bullshit, because before we came on here, I went through the schedule and I brought out the stats. Because from June 13th, which was the start of the Tampa Bay Rays series after the Mets swept the Nationals and Kodai Senga got hurt, from that game to the final game in Miami, which the Mets lost that game and missed the playoffs, they went 38-55, which was a .409 winning percentage. There was 3 different streaks that this team went through. From June 13th to June 24th, they went 1-10, 7-game losing streak. From July 28th to August 10th, they went 1-11. Again, another 7-game losing streak. And then from September 1st to September 14th, they went 4-10, and that stretch consisted of an 8-game losing streak. Not also to bring in to factor in that in August they had a series against the Nationals, a 3-game set in Washington. They lost 2 out of 3. In August, they had a 4-game set at Citi Field against the Marlins. They went 1-3. And then again, late September, had a 3-game set against the Nationals at Citi Field. Lost 2 out of 3. And then the finale against the Miami Marlins. 3-game set, you lost 2 out of 3. And even if you want to give me this, oh, it's one game. Okay, fine. Let's play this hypothetical scenario if it was just one game, which technically it was. In that game, the Mets scored a grand total of no runs to miss the playoffs.
Yeah.
So right away,
but that was the pitching's fault, Matt. You have to understand. I know. That was the pitching's fault. The pitching scored 0 runs. How dare they? What a bunch of pieces of shit,
And again, from those three stretches that I mentioned, they went 6-31 in those 3 stretches that I mentioned, which consisted of 2 7-game losing streaks and an 8-game losing streak. So no, it wasn't one game. It was 31 games that you lost, Pete. So I don't want to hear this. And again, this also goes back to the fact that because I know when me and Evan, we were doing our podcast episodes and we were kind of breaking down this series as this team was collapsing, one thing that we would always bring up on our podcast was the Carlos Mendoza quotes of, when he would come out after these games and say, the talent is there. We just need to go out there and win. And to me, I know Evan had more of a problem with it. To me, like on the face of it, I wasn't too bothered by it because when I always look at sport teams and quotes, I always say it's like, okay, like you can always say one thing to the media, but just because you're saying one thing to the media, it doesn't mean that same message has to be told to the players in the locker room. But it's clear from the way this team collapsed and the way that this Pete Alonso quote came out, it was clear that was the same message being told to the reporters that was being told to the players in the clubhouse, in the locker room.
You're beautiful. You're perfect. Just do your thing. And we saw so much accountability when, they make these screw-ups mentally in the field. We saw that none of them would get benched the next day. There would be no accountability whatsoever. And listen, I'm not going to say that Carlos Mendoza was perfect whatsoever, and I've been someone who has defended Carlos Mendoza a little bit more than I probably should have. But, again, there's only so many times you can do this of, well, we need a new manager. We need a new general manager. We need a new... What has been the common denominator here? This group of players. It always has been that. And before everybody tells me, well, what about Francisco Lindor? I mean, Francisco Lindor, again, he had a hand in this core as well. That is true. That 100% is true. And when he is underperformed, this team is underperformed because we have proven that this team goes where Francisco Lindor goes. And he proved that in 2024 when he contended for the MVP. But when we talk about Juan Soto or the guy that, and we're talking about like who are they passing this on to and who's left? Juan Soto talked about the Mets' goals going into the 2026 season, saying at the end of the day, it's about winning a championship. That's been the goal since day one, bringing a title back to the city of Queens and to New York as a whole. It's been a while since they've won one, and we're hungry. We're anxious. As for the individual numbers, those will come. My focus is simple. What we can accomplish together as a team. And listen, Juan Soto, we know he's a lot more preserved. He's not as vocal. But like we said, lead by example. Lead by example. And we've seen Juan Soto lead by example. We have. And even though, yes, it was not the most swift first year in Queens, I am going to trust to win my team with a possibility of a championship with a guy like Juan Soto, who has proved more as one player in his entire career than this entire core combined in 7 years. Juan Soto's a World Series champion. He knows what it means to win. And he did it at age 19, age 20? And Francisco Lindor, I mean, it's all about the mentality, like we have said. And listen, there has been things that Francisco Lindor has handled in a way that I didn't like. I did not like how he handled the McNeil situation. I did not like how he handled a few things. However, he's played well and backed it up. Francisco Lindor was the only guy that showed up in that final series in Miami. He seemed to be the only guy that was showing up in the big moments for this team in 2024.
That's what I was about to say, just to jump in real quick. Like this whole, well,
I'm not gonna, and listen, that's not me saying he was perfect. I'm not saying he was perfect. But again, we're talking about pedigree over everything. You know what I mean? The individual accomplishments of McNeil's batting title and Pete Alonso's home run derby championships, I don't give a shit about that. I don't. It's what you do when we need you. Juan Soto has proven that throughout his career, and I know that he will do this in a Mets uniform because he's not 40 years old. He's still 27. Francisco Lindor has come through for this team in the biggest moments possible. I'm not saying that these guys are the proven leaders because they've done things that I have not liked. But come on here. You're seeing the difference between premium top 1% players, and this core of Mets players that just aren't good enough. On to you, Evan.
Yeah, I was just going to say before, like this whole, well, it's one game thing. You could play devil's advocate then and say, well, 2024, they get blown up sooner if they lose one more game. If we're going to do the it's one game thing. If Lindor doesn't hit that home run against the Blue Jays to break up that no-hitter.
Yeah.
If we're going to play that.
Winning covers wounds. Igor covers wounds. Does this seem a little bit, we seeing the connection here? We seeing it? Andrew? No? No? No, you're not seeing the connection? Listen, I mean, I'm not saying that Soto and Lindor are perfect, but again, like we said, with leadership of what has been proven and things that can be solved, look who they just brought in. Marcus Semien and Jorge Polanco. Notorious clubhouse guys. Notorious leaders. And everyone says, well, I don't get this. The team got worse. Well, what was the team with these guys? They didn't do anything. They were shit. And before you tell me, oh, well, you're blaming this core when there's other problems. Yes, there's other problems. And hopefully they address them. But yeah, this core, they're making the big bucks. They're supposed to be the leaders on this team, the so-called veteran leaders for this team. And they weren't. They just weren't. They weren't leaders. They were good players, and I thank them for their time here, by far. But they're not leaders. They're just not.
Yeah, and I mean, just because you have good players doesn't mean it's the right mix. I mean, we've talked about that ad nauseum with the Rangers, not to keep connecting it to them, but like we've talked about with, there's plenty of teams in sports where you put the talent together and it doesn't result in wins. As the Brooklyn Nets, look at the talent they had, didn't result in a championship for them.
Yeah. You can have all the talent in the world. The great Gerard Gallant, and he had his flaws too.
But he was
you have all the talent in the world. If you don't play the right way, it doesn't mean shit. And the Mets definitely did not play an efficient baseball in 2025, and it showed. Delaying the inevitable. These players just weren't good enough. They weren't. And as they continue to get older, they weren't going to get any better. They had deficiencies that held this team back. It's just how it is.
And that's the other context.
Explosive saying the Mets had devil magic in 2024. In 2025 is the complete opposite. It's because they weren't good enough, and it wasn't going to sustain. It wasn't going to carry over. And it's been proven time and time again that this team, I don't want to go into a year every year with a $400 million payroll saying, I don't know if they'll make the playoffs. I don't know. You should be in the playoffs. And when people tell me, also in debate as well, this is just stuff popping up in my head of what I've been seeing on social media the past 2 weeks. Well, the Phillies haven't won anything, and they brought back Kyle Schwarber. First of all, I don't give a shit what the Phillies are doing because they're not the Mets. Phillies are doing their own thing, and they have their own deficiencies as well. But they're in the playoffs every year. Can we say that about the Mets? No. It comes to a point as to where we have to sit down and say, well, our way sucks. Because it does. Our way sucks. It has sucked for 60 years. It's not just 2025. And I'm not going to sit here and give flowers to Stearns for 2025 for, yeah, he tried, yes, and he was great, because it was a disaster. But it goes way beyond David Stearns giving Frankie Montas $34 million guaranteed. Way beyond that. And people need to start to realize it. And like we said, delaying the inevitable. If I interrupted anybody, you can...
I was just going to say before, if they can't make the playoffs, because this is the other context that gets lost. If they can't make the playoffs right now with these guys playing their quote-unquote best baseball, What makes anyone think giving them long-term contracts and keeping them until they're age 40, what makes them think they're going to make the playoffs then? You are just paying for a team that's going to miss the playoffs every single year at that point.
Yeah. I don't know how many times we can say it. It's like this core was given everything. Everything. And yes, I know there was deficiencies on every single team and the bullpen, and they didn't have this guy and it's not good enough. It was never good enough. And they probably should have broken this up even sooner. Even Stearns, who everybody hates so much and wants dead right now. Even Stearns gave you a chance. He said, all right, well, we made a run. That's good. They get Juan Soto. And they get worse. How do they get worse? Because the foundation of this team cannot withhold good baseball. They just can't. It's all about little streaks. It's all about, well, we need Latin pop songs. We need a rally rat. We need Grimace. And even though that was such a magical 2024 year, when you look through the cracks of that team, it took a lot for that team to get into the playoffs. And yes, we know all you need to do is get in because they made a great run. But if certain things don't go their way in that 2024, we would be having the same conversation we're having now. It was going to happen no matter what. And this is what happens when you draft and you develop deficient players. Because as good as they are in their certain categories, there's things that they don't do well in the margins that cost you. And that's what you saw in 2025. A team that was not fundamentally sound whatsoever. They didn't play efficient baseball. They made countless careless decisions. And that is basically what we have seen for 7 years. A team with so much talent, so much potential, so much great on the way, so much future that is so bright, fail every single time. And it also showed you that Steve Cohen's money that everyone wants to use once again on Kyle Tucker and Cody Bellinger and Framber Valdez doesn't win you shit. You got to build from the ground up here. Because if you're building from the sky down, that means Jesus came back. Pretty much it. And they tried to build from the sky down. They spent so much money. So much. I don't blame Steve Cohen for saying, hey, even though I'm wealthy as all fuck, I don't blame him for saying, oh, well, I'm seeing my money just get flushed down the toilet every year. Because that's all he's seeing. He has given them everything. Everything. Do we not remember how hard it was to make Juan Soto happen? $800 million, that entire contract, a luxury suite for his family. Like,
but no, he used us for the casino.
Yeah, exactly. It's all just for the casino, and that's all that he wants. Yeah, that's all he wants. Because we let Pete Alonso walk, they don't care. No, they care, and they see what has been going on here. Because again, as great as Pete Alonso is, he's going to go down as one of the best hitters that this team has ever developed. And, he's going to hold that home run record very, very warm until Soto completely shatters it and we don't have to talk about it ever again. The mindset is just not good. It just shows you the clues were there. Putting it all together as to why does this team always come up short? Why? You had to dip into the core to find out. And we don't know what's ahead for this team. We don't know. We have no idea. But we knew one thing. This wasn't working. It just wasn't working. And it starts with the leadership. And whether you're talking about the manager's not good enough, the GM's not good enough, the owner's not good enough, what comes next? What comes next? Because to be honest, if these leaders, these clubhouse guys, Polanco and Simeon, these types of clubhouse guys, if that doesn't make an impact, what would be next? What's going to be the next impact? Probably it'll be Carlos Mendoza, right? I think we all knew, like, that'll probably be the next thing.
Yep.
But it's like, I don't know how many times we can just delay the inevitable. This core, as good of players as they are a group of losing baseball players. I'm not calling them losers. I'm not calling them pieces of shit. I'm not insulting them personally because I know that people will take it to that sort of measure. But these guys, all they have done is lose. All they have done is lose. And not to mention off the field, in the media, of the stuff that we have heard over the years, losers. And it all comes to fruition here. All it comes to fruition of what we are hearing of the aftermath of this. And that all tells me that they did the right thing.
Yeah. And even like we always bring it up, but like, because everyone wants to be the model organization, which is currently the LA Dodgers, back-to-back World Series champions, countless division titles. Well, again, look at how many cores the Dodgers have gone through before they've ended up building and assembling this core that has currently won them back-to-back World Series titles. Like let's not forget, like when Guggenheim first bought them in 2012, they brought in guys like Hanley Ramirez, Adrian Gonzalez, Carl Crawford, all these guys. It didn't work. They then moved on to the next core, which consisted of guys like Corey Seager, even Adrian Gonzalez was on that team, Bellinger, Justin Turner, Corey Seager, Yasmani Grandal. Again, and they won a World Series. I know some people don't consider that a real World Series, but even then, after a guy like Corey Seager won World Series MVP, they let him go for nothing. And then 2021, they trade for guys like Trey Turner, Max Scherzer. Again, they go to free agency. What do? They let him go for nothing because they knew that those weren't. I think Scherzer was a different story just because the Mets overpaid him so much. That was the reason why he left. But still, they could have re-signed.
But we didn't get it. This team never had pitching. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. And listen, like I said, they could have re-signed Trey Turner. They didn't. They said, let's wait a little bit so we can go out and get guys like Freddie Freeman, sign a guy like Shohei Ohtani. Obviously, Mookie Betts happened in 2020 because he was part of that 2020 World Series core. But and then you start seeing, the pitchers start to come over. They got Tyler Glass now. They got Yamamoto. They signed Blake Snell. I know that people don't because listen, everyone wants instant success, right? And I'm sure all of us on this panel want the Mets to go out there and win the World Series next year. But you also have to take in the fact that sometimes it takes a little time and it takes a little patience, and it's about assembling the right group of guys, not just a bunch of guys together. Because again, you could assemble, guys with quote unquote talent, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna mix well together. It's like you always say, Carson. It's like everyone wants to be the Dodgers, but when it's time to actually start to think and operate like the Dodgers, that's when nobody wants to be like the Dodgers because they are smart and calculated, and they don't just go out there and burn money and just light it all on fire. They actually are smart about who they acquire, who they bring in. And that's something that we want the Mets to do, because let's not forget, in order to become a winner, you first have to find sustainability. You just don't go from losers to winners. It takes
Let's
a little
make
bit
the
of
playoffs
time.
in back-to-back seasons first. How about that? Let's do that first.
Unless you're the Texas Rangers, it just does not work where they just had that magical bullshit go their way. But we're talking 7 years too of every season being the tale of two seasons. 2019, shit first half, good second half. 2020 was just a shit show altogether. But 2021, Good first half, shit show second half. Same thing in 2022, 2023, shit season altogether, but especially like once May hit. And then you go to 2024, shit first half, scrape their way in, comes down to the last game pretty much to get in. Last year, good first half, shit second half. It's just like, how many times do you need to see the peaks and valleys instead of saying, you know what, let's stop doing the same shit insanity, the same shit over and over again, expecting a different result when we could try something new to actually be a sustainable winner. The Dodgers, like Matt said, didn't do it overnight. AJ Pollock was their highest paid player for a bit at one point there.
Yeah. I mean, again, the Dodgers you're looking at were not the Dodgers. Like they just weren't. And listen, Truman Quinn in the chat saying blaming the core is wild. Okay. Again, we can get into this. We can do it if you want to. I can show you why it's not wild whatsoever. And like we said, when it comes down to it, of a team trying to compete with a top 1% payroll, blaming the core is, if you're going to tell me that blaming the core is wild, then I can give you an example here of what this core does when it matters. For years, since Steve Cohen bought the team, I can show you. Let me pop it up here for everyone to see. Here is their hitting splits by month with runners in scoring position and in high leverage. These right here, when they were in contention, those are the months that are highlight when they're in the playoff race.
Oh my goodness, August in 2021.
Look at this. In 2021, with runners in scoring position, 56 weighted runs created plus in August, 98 in September. Nowhere to be found. In high leverage, even worse. 41 weighted runs created plus in August, 84 in September. 2022, September, nowhere to be found. In 2022, in high leverage, nowhere to be found. 2023, they sold at the deadline. So obviously they were in the playoff race beforehand. When it mattered, nowhere to be found. No consistency whatsoever. And then there's 2024, which even with the leadership that we had in August, they were still not there in August. And even before that leadership came in. Does anybody remember May 30th? Gloves being thrown into the crowd. The Mets are a complete disaster. Under this piece of leadership before Jose Iglesias came in and saved everyone, and Grimace came in and saved everyone, and everybody was at cloud nine. 2025, in September, nowhere to be found.
That's the pitching's fault, though, right?
That's the pitching's fault. Frankie Montas was signed.
How could Frankie
This
Montas
is now
do that?
years. And before you tell me that's the entire team, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, if you want to put Michael Conforto in there, Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil, they have all gotten more than 60% of those plate appearances with runners in scoring position and high leverage situations. They don't come through. They don't. They just don't. I don't know how many times we need to prove this. They just collapse when it matters. And if you mean to tell me that the core has nothing, blaming the core, come on, man. Get out of here with that. Ridiculous.
Even when you want to look at it in the year that they had the quote-unquote success in 2024 when they went to the NLCS, look at the difference in the NLCS. Like, specifically in Game 3 and Game 4 where the Mets got blown out, but before those scores got ran up, how many times did the Mets have opportunities to take the lead of those games before those games got out of hand, and they didn't because they couldn't hit in those high-leverage spots with runs in scoring position? And again, whose fault was that? The core guys, because they didn't perform.
I just vividly remember losing my shit watching Jeff McNeil come up to pinch hit in the NLCS with the bases loaded, and then he fucking pops out the warning track.
Yeah. Exactly.
But no,
we got to defend Stearns, so keep pushing this. WFAN created the core. I just gave you examples of this core failing. I just gave you an example. It's not fable. It's not WFA. Nobody's listening to WFAN on this. Nobody in their right mind who actually is listening to WFAN. It's true. It's literally true. I just showed you. If you need me to show it again, I could. This core was unclutch when it mattered. They were. And it's not personal. No one's attacking them personally. Again, like we said, lead by example. They don't. Emmy's another great point. I can count on this so many times, saying how many times did this offensive core score like 3 runs in the second inning?
That's the other
and then
thing
hardly get a hit for the rest of the game.
We did not talk about that enough too. Like how many times this season, Matt and I talked about this ad nauseum, every post game, every single podcast we did, where we would talk about, it's
what did we say with the New York Rangers? It's the same thing. Complacency.
Yeah,
complacency.
Them being power play merchants. We kept repeating the same thing time and time again. We'd be like, it's great that they got like 6 runs in a game, but they only scored those 6 runs in 1 inning, and they did nothing the rest of the game. We would talk about that so many.
And we've talked about the coaching on this team. Like we said, we don't think that they were coached correctly either. But that more has to do with the young guys and developing the young guys. Like these veterans who are being paid as much as they are being paid should be producing. It's just how it is. Either way, we're moving on from this core, whether people like it or not. Whether people think, well, good players make good team. Well, they've had plenty of these good players for 7 years. They don't win. They just don't win.
Yay, Polar Bear.
Yay, Polar Bear. Yay, Grimace. That's all done. Welcome to reality. This team doesn't win. And I'm not saying that the front office did everything correct during this entire core. But when it came down to it, your stars came up empty. They're just not good enough. Now, speaking of stars, let's actually get into a star that the Mets have actually been linked to. Right after Jeff McNeil was traded, there was a report that came out about the Mets being linked to Ketel Marte. Now, Ketel Marte's trade market is a little bit interesting because it heats up and then it gets cold again. It seems like that window is closing, but it seems like the Diamondbacks front office has made it very noticeable that, they're going to find a resolution soon as to what they are going to be doing with his certain trade market. With Ketel Marte, let's get into, either way, let's get into Ketel Marte and the rumors regarding him and kind of how this fits into this team, because it's kind of weird. But again, when you're talking about non-deficient players, this is where Ketel Marte would possibly come in. We all know how good of a player he is. He's been an MVP candidate before. Last year, another really good year despite some rough stuff going on off the field. Slashing 283, 376, 517, 28 home runs, 83 runs batted in, a 145 weighted runs created plus. He hits the ball hard, great batted ball data. He's a switch hitter, great from both sides, elite from both sides. Regularly, he plays second base. He has played third base, shortstop, and center field in his career. He does have that utility. He is owed $92 million through 2030 with a 11.5 player option for the 2031 season, which 2031, that's not a real year. He is a $19.4 million luxury tax hit. And here's the interesting thing about this. Andrew, I'm going to swing this over to you first. We talked about, obviously, the Mets infield situation and how crowded it is even without even without Jeff McNeil here. If I were to guess, okay, and this is just me, I don't know, being an optimistic piece of shit that I am, defending David Stearns, with what they are doing with Jorge Polanco, possibly with him maybe playing first base, it seems like, because we've seen him do this in Milwaukee before, that maybe they're thinking about bringing in athletes to play a less taxing position to get the most out of them. Because we saw him do this in Milwaukee before, of bringing guys to like an outfield position or moving, Keston Hero to first base. Like, we've seen him do that before. It's a weird approach, but if you're talking about, 3 stars at the top of my lineup here, Lindor, Marte, Soto, I'm signing up for that. It's a weird fit here. It really is a weird fit. He probably played like left field, maybe? I don't know. Because, I mean, he is a good defensive player at second base. He's not great in center. He's really not great at center field. I don't know where the fit is, but I'm not going to sit here and say, I don't want Ketel Marte on my team, because this is an experienced veteran right here. He's a great player. So, I mean, what are your thoughts? This is weird. It's very weird because, again, you also have that, the young infielders too. So it's weird. Very, very odd. Very odd fit. But again, Ketel Marte is a good player. I would not be opposed if they were to go after him.
And when he came up, he played from center field, but it's yes, he's a good defender at second base. Like last year, he was a +9 OAA. This year, he was +1. It's just, again, he's already done this with Polanco at first. I mean, is he playing left field? I mean, fine. The sprint speed's in the 29th percentile. Like, he's not as fast as he used to be. And we've said this again. If it's like, how are you going to replace, Cheeto Bears or offensive production? There's a hell of a way. And now you add Polanco and Marte's last couple of years together is pretty much close to identical to what, an MO and Cheeto Bear was doing. So if this is just strictly a maybe revolving door of Polanco some first, maybe Ketel gets some first, left field, DH, it's a weird fit. I mean, especially with Semien here, unless maybe you shift Semien to third. But again, you got Semien to play defense, to have that at least up the middle double play tandem with Lindor. And especially if, what was the main phrase we've heard is run prevention, run prevention, run prevention. And the bats he would be bringing in if it is Ketel Marte to potentially play left field or center field potentially, or DH, and Jorge Polanco to play first base in DH. So, yes, Semien is at least the one move where you see that's the run prevention. But if this is just, I want to get the bat, and also the price to acquire is out there. And we saw what they wanted from Tampa Bay. They want 2 controllable starters. So they're going to want controllable young pitching. And yes, he's coming off, he's been a top 10 hitter in baseball over the last couple of years. He's also 32. This isn't like a Juan Soto guy where it's like, he's in his early, the late 20s. This is a guy in the back end or earlies of his 30s. You're going to give him his age 33 season with term left on the
32.
deal. Yes, it's not
32.
Outrageous. 32 again, 32. I see it on Savant, but I'm thinking maybe his birthday, whatever. So 32. Even still, again, it's not a contract where it's like it's not bad. Like the AAVs are not terrible on it, but again, you're getting him to age 31, and we've seen with Stearns. Is this a guy you want? He's kept the books clean. Is this a guy? Yes, it is moving up. And hey, look at your little power play merchants. Good job, guys. But again, it's an interesting fit. I mean, again, the player is amazing. It's a lot of term left. The AAV is not terrible. Again, if you're trying to make your better roster, it's just where does he play? And again, if you're Stearns has been Mr. Run Prevention, and you're going to put two guys out of position on a daily basis. Like that doesn't scream. If it's maybe just putting athletes in less strenuous positions, but even still, it's like it's not something. And also, his 10-5 rights hit the third day of the season, so the Diamondbacks really have to trade him, or he he already kind of has a 5-team as of right now. He's got a 5-team no trade. 5 days into the season, he gets his 10-5 rights, which means he can have a full no trade. So you would expect the trade to happen. We know the teams like the Mariners are involved, and they have some young pitching and young position players that potentially want to move.
They let him go originally. Right?
Exactly. Well, they got Haniger, and it was a fair trade for the time. Obviously, you can tell the long term was better, but at the time,
it was
a fair deal. It was before he broke out, and they had that young group of outfielders. Where really only one of them was actually good, but they had the outfield depth that they thought as prospects. So they thought they can move Ketel, but. Again, it's an interesting fit if you're just trying to get the best bat. I mean, you can arguably say he is the best bat available on both the free agent and the trade market. So if you're trying to improve, you can maybe say that he's better than Kyle Tucker because, again, he is a switch hitter. He's bringing more versatility to the lineup. Again, would I be mad? Again, what would the cost of, to acquire? Is it, potentially a Brandon Sproat and then someone else in that second tier? Like, are you guys willing to give that up? Like, that's what it's going to cost. They're looking for young pitchers. There could be a Sproat plus a Santucci. And then maybe you give them, one of these, flyer young guys if they like an Acuna, maybe a Marusio. Like, it's going to cost something decent. And again, we haven't seen Stearns go insane for blockbuster trades. Obviously, he's made some, smaller trades that, has some smaller upside deals. So, again, what's the price to acquire? And again, where is he playing? Like if you're telling me he's my DH, but also again having Jorge Polanco here, I don't want Jorge Polanco every day at first base. Like I would like him to be, kind of a revolving piece. And hey, maybe every day is different, and you're getting guys that play multiple positions. You're adding the versatility. I guess you could say every other day it doesn't matter. Somebody else they could be playing different positions. So it's an interesting idea. It's a great offensive bat that this lineup needs. And again, if you're going 1 through 4, you got 3 switch hitters, 1 through 4 your lineup. That's a pretty good lineup versatility going Lindor, Marte, Soto, and I know Polo as of now is hitting cleanup. I mean, hit cleanup from Seattle. I don't want that. I would prefer him not to hit cleanup, but at least 3 out of your first, let's call 5 bats, being switch hitters is also a pretty good balance to your line.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird, like defensively, it's kind of like square. What is it? Circle peg in a square, or was it square peg in a circle or whatever? But I mean, again, this is a good player, and I feel like it's someone you can build around in his later years because of, the switch hitting, obviously the great situational hitting, the overall versatility, similar to kind of Polanco offensively as well, where he's a jack of all trades, possibly in the older side of his career. But defensively, I don't know where this makes sense. But if they were to do it, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, that's stupid because of the defense. I mean, you lose the Cheeto Bear. You lose the Cheeto Bear, and you want the top 3 of your lineup. You got Soto, Lindor making premium money. Then you get that third guy who's making what? It's like a $19 million cap hit for a guy who's an MVP caliber player, who probably has like a few more years of that MVP type of production left. I don't know. And then there's also this one factor, which I'll clue you guys into. He did go through a lot in 2025. I don't know if New York is the best fit for that. We know that there was something with like fans screaming at him or something. He also had like his house broken into as well. Like it was a rough year for Ketel Marte. For him to put up the numbers that he did in 2025 is kind of impressive, to be honest. But either way, I don't know if it's I don't know if it's the best fit, but you also have to think that like it's like somebody in that infield is going to get moved in that deal, because like there's just no way when you're talking about the outfield depth chart or in the infield. I don't know if it fits, but if you're talking about you want a third star at the top of that lineup to complement with Soto and Lindor, this is the type of player here. I mean, Matt, I don't know if this is. I mean, this is a dynamic player right here. Like to pair with Lindor and then Soto, who's Ted frickin' Williams of this generation.
Yeah, I remember when the rumor came out right after the McNeil trade went down, and Francis Romero mentioned, that the Mets were involved in Ketel, or at least they were interested in acquiring a guy like Ketel Marte. And I agree with both of you guys that the fit seems weird, but more on the positional defensive wise. Because listen, I mean, if you're acquiring Ketel Marte's bat, I mean that fits right into this lineup perfectly. Because if you could surround them with guys like Lindor, Soto, hopefully a guy like Francisco Alvarez could take the next step. Hopefully Semien bounces back. You surround them also with a guy like Jorge Polanco's bat. I mean, that bat, if you can build around those three guys of Soto, Marte, Lindor, like that is a very good top three of the order that could, take this team far. It goes down to the fact of, okay, where is Ketel Marte necessarily going to play? Because he's a great, second baseman. Like he grades out well at second base. I mean, even just looking at Savant, and again, Carson, like you brought up, you broke down with the stats, like he fits so well into this lineup because he hits for average, he hits for power. The barrel rate's up there at 83rd percentile. The bat speed is 85 percentile. He doesn't swing and miss a lot. His K rate has steadily dropped over the last couple of years. His walk rate has kind of steadily increased. So again, like the bat works. It's just again, where's he going to fit defensively? Because if you told me before the Marcus Semien and Brandon Nimmo trade would happen, I'm like, okay, cool. He goes right into second base and you don't have to worry about that. But now that Semien's here, it's almost like, okay, where are you going to place Ketel Marte defensively? Because, you could move Marcus Semien off second base to third base, but like Andrew brought up and like what Evan brought up in our group chat, it's like the Mets acquired Marcus Semien for his up the middle defense and for his gold glove caliber defense second base. So why are you now going to move him to a position to which he's probably played third base, but again, like, his best position is second base. And it's like, okay, you could move Ketel Marte to third. Probably that would require you to trade Brett Beatty. And maybe, like you mentioned, Carson, one of those infielders would get moved. Maybe a guy like Brett Beatty gets moved in that deal. But then like what Andrew brought up, and this kind of goes hand in hand because Ketel Marte over the last couple of years, he's had little, injury concerns and he's had little injury nibbles like with the bottom half of his body and his hamstring. And like what Andrew brought up, like, you can move him to first base, which is a less draining position on your body. But then again, it's like with the Mets bringing in Jorge Polanco to, play kind of split time at DH and first base, now do you kind of want two guys who have never played first base, primarily in their position, to man the first base position? And I know that Polanco has kind of, has been working on his first base a little bit because he was doing some drills last year in Seattle, and we've seen the videos circulating around Twitter with him doing those drills in the offseason. But again, it goes back, and the whole thing about David Stern's run prevention that he preached at the end of the year, it's like, okay, is it really smart to put two guys that have never played first base primarily at that position?
It's basically this point that GWB is saying here in the chat, saying, players out of position doesn't equal run prevention. And that's the thing. I think what we're trying to do is basically try and put these puzzle pieces together of what the thought process is, because we know that David Stearns has preached this before. And then if you're talking about this defensively, I don't know what the interest level is, obviously, that the Mets have. We know that there has been teams that have been checking in on Ketel Marte, but it's weird because, like I said, with first base and left field, obviously there's more opening as of right now with them getting rid of their first baseman, with their first baseman going to Baltimore and then them trading their left fielder. I mean, again, like I said, it's more of like when I said, like, athletes playing a less taxing position to get that type of run prevention out of them and that defensive ability out of them because they're such good athletes. And, maybe you have, the coaching and defensive positioning as to where, this can get better and these guys can improve and be serviceable there. Could it be something that it's like, okay, we're doing this and we're, putting athletes in these positions, but if it doesn't work, that's kind of just building a bridge to young guys like Clifford or young guys like Benj. Like, those are the two positions that they would possibly play. Benj probably suits the best as a left fielder because his defense is not, the best, run protection in center field. And then at first base, you would have guys like Ryan Clifford. However, Jorge Polanco is here for 2 years. And Ketel Marte would be here through 2030. Like, so 2031 possibly, because it is a really good contract. So like, I don't see this as a possible fit. BBA saying it's like, now you're dreaming about players we'll never get. What are these fantasies? Listen, we're playing pretend because of the reports. We're just going where they go. We're going where the reports go. And we know that he is available. Everybody wants stars, right? But it's got to make sense. And I wouldn't be opposed to him playing left field, because even if, Stearns has his sights set on run prevention, that doesn't mean that I 100% agree with it. You know what I mean? And yes, the defense was not good last year, and it does need to improve. And if they end up getting these defensive first center fielders or left fielders, I wouldn't be mad, because that's what I expect. And I asked you guys actually in this chat in the poll we did, and I'll get into that in a second. But I mean, there is plenty of avenues they can go here because of the guys that left. Again, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I just feel like it's kind of backtracking on the run prevention of guys, too many guys playing out of position. You know what I mean? You already have Polanco there. You already have Juan Soto, who's not great in right field. Could there be somebody they go after like Kyle Tucker or Bellinger to kind of move Soto to left field? I don't know. There's plenty of combinations they can go here, and it's interesting. But as for Ketel Marte in the outfield, he has played the outfield before. He's never played left field in his life. So, again, like I said, and his numbers in center field, brutal. Frickin' brutal. He has a career -7 outs above average in center field throughout his career. The last time he played it was in 2023. And the most that he played in a season was 2019, which was a long time ago. Either way, I do want to get into some of the other reports that we were seeing from a lot of the other, insiders. Like we said, not much that who knows? We don't know shit, to be honest.
Well, no, Lindor's going to go to San Diego, and then Ketel's going to play shortstop. He already is in San
Diego, actually.
Yeah, Ketel's going to play shortstop. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, Ketel Marte is going to play. Okay, so now it's starting to add up. Okay,
there you go.
Thank
yes.
You, Evan. All right. Okay. Sure. Puzzle pieces. We got it. All right. Cool.
And then they're going to get Tatis also in that trade for Lindor. That's how it's happening.
That's true. Could this be a ploy to get Tatis to play left field or right field, move Soto to left field? Hey, this is how I'm seeing Mets fans. It's like the fantasy baseball shit. It's like, how do we fix this?
And we're getting a certain reliever that screams yeah every time he throws a fastball.
And when the Mets get Tatis, Carson's gonna have to do a certain something that he texted in the group chat that he promised he would start.
Oh,
I forgot completely about that. Oh my god. Okay. Sometimes I just say shit and I don't remember it. Anyways, let's get into some of the other reports. We had an article come out about Power Gaza, basically reiterating what we have basically known, that the Mets are engaged in both the free agent and trade markets, looking for pitching help and a bat. According to rival executives, the Mets are open to trading Mark Vientos. There's Ronnie Mauricio could be had. Luis Angel Acuna is available as well. The Mets are comfortable with Tyrone Taylor in center field, and Carson Bench is a possibility. Maybe Jet Williams, stuff like that. But he does end this with it saying, Mets president of baseball operations David Stearns certainly has his work cut out for him this winter. The Mets have numerous holes on their roster that must be filled by the end of the offseason, and they're exploring both free agent and trade markets in an attempt to do so. It's basically just the same crap that we've heard for weeks. Rosenthal and Sama via The Athletic also reiterated saying that the Mets hold interest in adding a right-handed batter to balance out their lineup. People familiar with their conversation has said that could end up being someone that plays first base. Who knows who that ends up being. Francis Romero as well, who came out with that Ketel Marte report, also said that the Mets remain interested an outfielder, Luis Robert Jr., and talks are continuing in an effort to acquire him with the Reds, which got completely cut off because they already acquired a center. They already acquired a center fielder. John Heyman on X also put out that the Mets have internally discussed guys like Austin Hayes and have some interest there. Could be a potential right-handed hitting outfielder fit. And then there was some stuff about Tetsuya Mai, who I do want to talk about for a second, obviously, because he just signed this week. But it seems to be the same stuff that we have been seeing, to be honest. But there also was a little bit, I don't know, glimmer of hope. You know, there was a little shining red part from the Mets vice president of baseball operations, who this week was talking to John Triolo. And this is a translation through Masterflip on X, so credit to him. He translated it because a lot of it was all that he was saying was in Spanish, so he was translating as to what he was actually saying. And this is Edward Brusela. I don't know if I said that correctly, but he said this, I believe, was during, like, he was being interviewed during the Dominican Winter League, I'm pretty sure. And he said that we are actively looking to add another outfielder to the mix. We love the versatility our current roster provides, and we are seeking additional players who can bring that same flexibility and depth. To Mets fans, there's really nothing to worry about. I know the offseason has been tough with some familiar faces no longer here, and it's natural to feel uncertain when big pieces move on. I truly believe we're building a strong competitive team. We've got a ton of exciting talent rising through the farm system, quality options available in free agency, and we're going to be very aggressive in trades as well. Rest assured, we're staying super active this winter. So that is Mets Vice President of Baseball Operations, Eduardo Brusela. Again, don't know if I said that last name correctly. You guys can correct me all if you want. Call me an asshole for not knowing. I don't care. But either way, there's so many ways that you can grab at this. Like we already talked about Ketel Marte. I think that there's a few options out there that I think they're going to either, in the bat department, I think they're going to acquire somebody via trade. I don't know who that's going to be. I know that the Tucker market and the Bellinger market, the Mets are attached to that. But if I were to take a guess here, okay, because I feel like there was some stuff that came out last year that kind of clues me into this. That whole report from Salmon and Rosenthal. Andrew, I'll swing it to you because we've talked about this before. I have a strong feeling that this right-handed bat for first base would be Spencer Torkelson. What do you think?
Last year, and not this year. I think Detroit's been very. Again, if you were to get Torque, it was last year. Like when we saw those reports, Detroit's not moving Torque. I know he had a better year this year than last year. So again, we thought last year when he was a buy low candidate because he had a really bad year, got sent back down. Pretty sure this year he bounced back to what
he did. He did have a really good season.
Again, he's still making
the profiles.
He's still cheap.
It really does.
The profile, yes, but it's not going to be Torque. And if Torque was going to happen, it would have happened last offseason. From what at least what I've read, for at least what I'm reading from right-handed bat that can play first base, maybe play third base. In my world, it's Eugenio Suarez. That's what I've heard. First thing I'm thinking is that's the guy where, again, insurance, if Polanco can't play first, Gino can play some first. If Brett goes back to being Brett Beatty, he can play some third base. He can play some DH. It's versatile, meaning he can play the multiple positions. If that's the right-handed bat, if we're not talking outfielder-wise, because we'll see if they add other outfielders. But for the right-handed perspective, when I saw, again, everything I've seen, it's like, okay, it's probably Gino. Or, again, if that also can take to the guy that Heyman's saying, Mr. Austin Hayes, which I would like to shoot my dog if Austin Hayes is on the roster. Because again, God forbid, we have replacing Brandon Nimmo with that.
Christ.
I mean, no. But and Gino fits kind of what this team needs. It needs a guy that you can pencil in 30 homers. And, Gino's going to strike out 500 times, but he's going to end of the year hitting 30 homers. And this offense needs that type of guy hitting 5 or 6 in this lineup who you can provide that 30 homer power. And he can play some first base. And Gino's weird because it's like every other year he decides to be good defensively. Like one year he sucks terrifically defensively, and then the year before that, he's, Gino Suarez actually has the reputation. Mark Vientos is going to be in AAA Saskatoon. I'm done with Mark Vientos. Get him the hell out of here. He'll be traded for, to the Wandong time. I'm not putting Mark Vientos. We've been there, done that. See you later.
No,
again, I know what I'm getting.
I don't think he's defending him. I think he's saying if you sign Suarez, then Vientos is definitely gone.
Yeah. I'm my phone. I'm barely. Yes. Vientos would be gone for, again, if they ever decide to trade for a pitcher, or maybe Ketel Marte trade. Again, the Diamondbacks need bats as well.
International money, that could possibly happen. Maybe.
Dad, please just get him. I've had enough. But yeah, like you know what you're getting with Gino. Like it's not sexy, but you know what you're gonna get. You're gonna have a half where Gino hits 38 homers, and you're like, this is the best hitter in baseball. But then he can go 2 months being the worst hitter in baseball. You know what he is, but at the end of the year, there's going to be 30 homers and 80 RBI. You could say that. And this offense needs that. Yeah. So, and it's not going to cost you a lot. And we saw what Murakami went for, and that's, again, it has not played in the big leagues. 2 years, $20 million a year, if that, maybe less. Like Christian Walker's making what? I think 18, 19. Obviously, the Golden Bear makes
$20 million, and then he shows up in a walking boot at spring training, and then gets denied surgery.
Exactly. Then his appendix blows, and then his kid see he goes Kike Hernandez, and he's blind. Which maybe he is blind. Maybe he does need the Max Muncy eye surgery. But again, when you heard that right-handed bat, little bit of versatility automatically for me. It went to Gino. Just again, insurance for if Beatty is not, that breakout isn't real. He can go play third. If Polanco can't play first base, Gino can easily shift over to first base and be a fine, can be what Pete Alonso was defensively at first base, while also providing the power that the lineup desperately needs.
Another guy, Kobe Mayo. They have a first baseman, the Orioles. They have their first baseman. We know who it is.
Yeah.
Do we know?
I mean, do that? I thought he was a DH. Oh, sorry. I thought that was a DH. I mean, Ryan Mountcastle would be more realistic. Yeah. I mean, Ryan Mountcastle is probably more. Yeah. I think if they're trading Kobe, they want like Edward Cabrera, which I'm surprised is they haven't just put him on the try to get the 1-for-1 swap. I mean, they went out and traded 9,000 pieces for Shane Baz, but I would think they would use Kobe for a front end starter instead of paying for Framber Valdez, putting him on the table for a guy like Freddie Peralta or something like that. I think that's would make more sense. I mean, that would kind of be. I mean, to put it in kind of a hockey sense term, I know technically he's played in the big leagues, but like. Maybe this is like a McGroarty situation where you flip a prospect for a prospect, like Yeager for McGroarty. Maybe it's something like that. But it's Mayo's weird.
This is the other one that's kind of scared me a little bit. Let's just say that. Joshua brings it up in the chat. Is Christian Walker available? Don't the Astros need to free up some money? Ooh.
I would have said.
They might. Move him. That's not something I would go for. Because
I saw an interesting idea though, where would you be on board with it if they were getting like Brian Abreu in the deal to take on Christian Walker, or just like some reliever in the deal?
I would want a starter.
That's fair.
But they don't have that.
They don't have any of those.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I would have said, we could have traded our Japanese guy there, but of course they got to sign him and ruin that dream because he don't want to play with other Japanese pitchers. But the money would have equaled out. You could have flipped Senga for Walker, but obviously now they got Amai, so that kind of takes that off the table.
Walker's making $20 million a year through 2027, so he's got two more seasons.
2 years this year, next. I mean,
he had a good second half. If there's any silver lining,
he's still a 30 home run bat, but
and he's still good defensively. First base, first base defense is still productive.
He had a really good second half, though.
He did.
Yeah, he still was. Man, he was you know, and the season numbers look, I mean,
But he's
it would-
also
it
coming
would be
into a
kind of-
35-year-old season. So it's like,
I mean, hey, we traded for Marcus Semien for defense. Why can't we trade for another 35-year-old for defense? I mean, it's keeping
I
the
don't
Stearns
know.
way. I mean, and then it gives you 2 years for Clifford, the big
it
red
probably
dog.
could
You know,
be. Again, that probably could be the best bet because again, we're talking about like a 2-year like window
Stop
here
it.
where they're trying to bridge the gap for, you know, to give the opportunity for these young guys to play. So
I mean,
if you're,
speed
you know,
still-
your options, you know, if it's Jorge Polanco and, you know, guys like Christian Walker, you might as well have, you know, you might as well have like the thought of dimensions opening up defensively and guys who can provide what you were missing with Pete Alonso. Not to mention Christian Walker can give you that 30 home run power if he's right. I don't know. It's a fit, but I don't know if I would go for it. He is a Polaire goat. So, but however, with the Crawford boxes in what is it? In Houston, I don't know how that I don't know if that translated the best. I
mean,
He
know
would have had
he-
26 home
Yeah.
runs at Citi Field this past year.
if he's hitting seventh in your lineup, I mean,
Tristan
No.
Seahas.
He's never
Tristan
healthy.
Casas. Yeah.
I mean, there is another guy on there's another guy on the Astros who plays first and third.
Guys, we should have
that
just kept
they're
Pete
potentially going
Alonso.
to
What the
trade.
hell?
Oh God. I mean,
Paredes.
they're listening. Yeah, they're listening on
He
each
also
side.
bat-
I mean, that's another. Yeah, that's another right-handed
Yeah.
bat potentially.
That's another
I
one.
mean,
Yeah, we should have just gave Pete $300 million. We really should have.
you know what? Okay.
Because,
David,
you know,
why
Steve
did-
Cohen's
why
good
did
for
Epler
it,
not
you know?
extend him? Why did Epler decide, I'm going to pay the gerbil instead of paying the golden bear? That's kind of sad.
That's hilarious, man. That is fucking hilarious. Yeah.
I
Casas
mean, he
is
literally
always
signed
first.
he literally signed everybody to an extension. He's like, Golden Freddy? Nah, I'm not paying that guy, but I'll pay everybody else.
Yeah.
Like,
He could have done it. He could have done
I mean,
it.
he did offer. I mean, he did offer
Pete-
something, but
Pete turned it down. But
That's
hey,
fair, good.
Stearns is the bad guy though. So
I mean,
whatever.
I can't say what I want to say, but yeah, he is the best.
that's
He's
the
always
funny.
best.
You know what the funny part is about this, and this is a complete tangent, where you know Joshua was saying the team can't compete without Pete. Wasn't he like he was one of the worst clutch hitters in 2024, and they got the farthest. That's funny to me.
That made
I don't
me
know.
have a
That's kind
chuckle.
of funny to me. I had a really
mean-
good chuckle, man.
I mean, the Cincinnati Reds competed, and they don't have a Pete Alonso. They have a giant Ellie De La Cruz, and it's about it. They found a way to
Yeah.
compete.
Like, they made the playoffs
I'm
without Pete
not-
Alonso. How?
How did they do that?
You know,
How did they make the playoffs? Who's responsible
Milwaukee
for this?
Brewers. You know, Hey, I mean, the Milwaukee
It's Frankie
Brewers only have
Montas.
maybe one player better than Pete Alonso, but yeah, they made the playoff.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. I do want
I
to
mean,
close
it's
with some
poverty
stuff.
division.
Obviously, Tim in the chat saying, did the Mets miss out on Amai who signed with the Astros? Yeah, the whole the situation with Amai was so odd to me because, like, you had Mets fans obviously freaking out because obviously they want every single free agent. But I barely blinked an eye because it's like, again, it's just not really what it could be what they need. I don't know if it's what they need, but it's not what this rotation needs. I've talked about this many times with this team or with this rotation. This rotation doesn't really necessarily need full on star power. I'd love to have it, but it doesn't need star power. They need a horse. They need a horse of an arm. And Tetsuya Imai, he's never had 30 starts in his career in Japan because, again, they pitch once a week. And we've already seen those types of stipulations with Senga coming over from Japan and still hasn't been able to adjust to that. I'm not saying that, Amai is the same in that way, but it's like, would that really help? Would it really help in that way? I know he's younger and younger than Senga was when he signed with us. But it's like, I didn't think it was. And also, he was scouted as worse than Senga, Otani, Yamamoto, Sasaki, Imanaga. Like, he's not, like, he's got a ceiling of a mid-rotation guy, and he has reliever concern because of his erratic fastball. Like, I wasn't really blinking much of an eye. I would have took him. I would have been, hey, welcome. But, like, I'm not going to say, well, I'm going to go completely feral for a guy who has 0 innings pitched in the majors and also wouldn't have been what this rotation needs, if that makes sense.
No, yeah,
Like
I agree. Because, like, it's
yeah.
a deal I would have done, but I also understand that if they're trying to look for more certainty, like, you know, the
Yeah.
market seems dead right now on all these pitchers like Framber, Ranger
Yeah.
Suarez, who we've heard them linked to recently, whoever else. And if you get them on a 3-year deal, then I understand wanting to go the route of, okay, this guy's done it in the major leagues. This guy makes 30 starts versus banking on Imai of what he could be, which could be better than those guys. But like you said, they need more certainty right now than question marks because they already have a rotation full of question marks.
Because as this market is going with this rotation, like I'm saying, like, again, we didn't get as much into the rotation as we probably should have because, again, it's a glaring need definitely for this team. They, again, right now, they have 5 starting pitchers that are lined up to be in this rotation. They have to move somebody, but also they want to give leeway to these young guys to contribute in 2026. The guys like Scott, Tong, McNeil, I think, already has a rotation spot an opening day, any better. Brandon Sproat as well. They want to give that leeway to these guys. And basically what I'm saying is this rotation right now going into 2026 needs a Bartolo Colon. That's what they need. They need a veteran guy who can pitch a bunch of innings, and it opens up the opportunities for these young guys to develop in the final stage of their development at the major league level. That's what they need. And I'm not saying, and listen, development is so much different from when it was with the Harvey, Syndergaard, DeGrom, Wheeler. But to have a guy who can get out there every 5 days, go 6 innings, make 30 starts, they need that. And before people tell me that's David Peterson, we have seen plenty of times, August, September, he burns out. Down the stretch of the season, he burns out. And the only time he didn't burn out was in that magical 2024 when he had Shakira hip surgery. And he came back. And he was magical. He made 30 starts for the first time in 2025 this season. And when he got into that last threshold, those last 8 starts, horrendous. He became part of the problem. And also, there's uncertainty with him, too, because he's likely leaving in free agency after this season. So, I don't know. And then I feel like when you're lining this up, you're bringing in a horse here. You're bringing in a guy who can give you 30 starts, 180 innings. That lines you up for next winter with Tyreek Skubal on the market. So I feel like that's where it's all getting lined up. When you're looking at these guys trading for the rotation, they need a horse. That's what they need. And listen, Tyreek Skubal is both. Tyreek Skubal is 100% both. But this rotation needs a iron arm. Because there's only so many uncertainties you can have. Even if you're keeping Senga, you don't know if he's going to be healthy. Sean Manaea, banged up all year. Clay Holmes, how does he recover from his first year? You just don't know. And they need a horse in this rotation. I don't know if Tatsuya Maeda is that. I just don't know. I have no clue. They need certainty to put the uncertainty together, shall we say. Like they need a guy to get the job done every 5 days, to work out the kinks for the rest of the rotation. 30 starts, 180 innings. Matt, if there's anything you want to...
Yeah, I mean, look, if the Mets did sign Imai, I would have been definitely intrigued by it because his last 2 years over in Japan, the MPB, he actually was very good, and he did iron out some of those control issues and some of those walk issues that he did had. But part of the reason why he was able to work out those kinks was that he had to cut back on his repertoire because he was mainly in those last 2 years, he was mainly more of a fastball slider guy. And we know coming over to the major league level, unless your name is Jacob deGrom, you need more than 2 pitches to attack certain hitters because the only way you're only attacking guys with 2 pitches if those 2 pitches are some of the best pitches ever, which we know deGrom had an elite level fastball and elite level slider. So we knew that he was going to have to re-add those pitches into his repertoire, and you never know, like if he did if he put back those pitches back to his repertoire, were you going to start seeing those control issues start to come up again? And that's also not to mention the fact that, the rest is different over here. They use a different baseball. So, there was a lot of factors go into the fact that, okay, maybe Imai is not the guy that the Mets are going to go after just because, and this is something that we've kind of stated throughout this podcast and more so this whole offseason was the Mets want to go into next year with as little risk as possible. And if you're signing Imai, that's a big question mark and a big risk going into your rotation where, and look, listen, for the Astros, Imai might work out. And I think that's a decent non-risky deal for the Astros to take.
Yeah.
But if I'm the Mets and I'm looking at signing a guy to a short-term starting pitching deal this year for agency, I'm more looking at a guy like Framber Valdez because Framber Valdez is proven in the major leagues. He could eat innings. He's a World Series champion.
That's a horse.
Yeah,
that's a horse right there.
That is something that the Mets need. And even like you said, Carson, if you're not going to sign someone in free agency this year, next year look at the free agency class. It's a lot better with guys like Skubal, Peralta, and other guys like that. So I'm not too concerned that the Mets missed on Imai. Would I've liked them to sign Imai? Would I've been intrigued by it? Sure, but I think there's better options out there than Imai. And listen, it's even clear because even before Imai signed that deal, when the offseason first started, there were rumors that teams were, or not that teams were necessarily going to offer him that, but there were rumors that saying that to sign Imai, you might have to go like 8 years, $200 million. And that came nowhere close to that. And we even saw that with the Murakami contract that they had so many question marks next to them that their free agency markets completely collapsed to where they had to take these short-term deals.
Yeah. He's not Yamamoto. Again, it was Yamamoto. Losing out Yamamoto stung. Like we didn't even talk about Tetsuya Mai on this like throughout this entire offseason so far. We haven't even talked about him because I just didn't feel like there was much of a fit to talk about him. Not to mention his market was so barren. The Mets were linked to him a little bit. John Heyman said the Mets and Yankees didn't seem to have that much of interest. And like we've said, with all of these reports that come out of how these guys we're linked to these guys, and then all of a sudden they end up going somewhere else and the Mets didn't even make an offer. It's like the Mets do a lot of these things behind closed doors. And, it's impressive that a lot of this stuff doesn't get out. It really is. But again, in terms of the pitching staff, they need a horse in this rotation. A horse that these young guys can ride the lightning on. And I don't know if Evan's here, but
I just got back to her.
A horse that the young kids at the swimming pool can ride the lightning on. That's what they need. Okay, and that's what this rotation needs. But yeah,
yeah,
yep. Anyways, I don't know if there was any other stuff that came out. We saw some stuff about. There was one thing about
Ranger Suarez.
There was some stuff about Ranger Suarez. Again, I don't think that's what this rotation needs either. But I would not go after that. We know that the Kyle Tucker stuff. We're actually going to get into Kyle Tucker next episode. We're going to do a little bit more of a breakdown on that with his market kind of crashing the way that it has been, or how silent it has been. But again, it's a standstill, not just with the Mets as of right now, but everybody else in baseball. I mean, yes, the Mets could go and sign somebody, but why bid against yourself when you know that spending as much money as they have has not worked? So it's right. They're right to be cautious. It just sucks for the fans. It really does. It sucks for the fans because it's boring. It is boring. We can't say it's not. So we'll see. We'll see how everything ends up. We'll see how things get put together. I'm interested. But again, there's plenty of moves to be made, and we've still had a decent amount of offseason go by already. The winter meetings, like what? How many weeks has passed since the winter meetings? Like 3 weeks, 4 weeks? Yeah, 3 weeks. I mean, we'll see what happens, but we will be here for it. We will be reacting to it when these things happen. These big major moves go live, and obviously we will be live every Friday. Hopefully, maybe somebody else's. I don't know. Hopefully, nobody else's appendix bursts and we have to cancel things. But I think I'm good. I think I'm good for the long term. Either way, we're going to close this out here. Thank you to Evan and Matt for joining us. Guys, if there's anything that you would like to say, any closing messages, address the nation. Evan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. Hopefully we'll be riding more lightning throughout the offseason from the culture-changing moves that come. And always great, though, to be on. I appreciate you guys having us on again.
Yep. Anyways, Matt?
Yeah, listen, always great to be on here. We always have a good chuckle when we're on here.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I mean, listen, baseball's back soon. We got spring training next month, World Baseball Classic next month, and hopefully within the next couple weeks, people sign. There's a couple trades being made, and we could, look forward to this baseball season because it's been dead the last couple months. But as always, again, Happy New Year to everybody.
All right, well, I'll close it with this. Andrew, Jeremy Barnes has been hired by the Nationals as their director of base running, gameplay, and defense. So that means that Jeremy Hefner was hired by another team. You had Anton Richardson hired by another team. You had Jeremy Barnes hired by another team. Glenn Sherlock, Glenn Sherlock retired. No, John Gibbons was hired by another team. I mean, when you talk about it here, hey, that's so interesting that there's one guy that didn't get hired by anyone in the Major League Baseball. It's so weird. And to be honest, that guy was considered a future managerial candidate 2 years ago when he became a bench coach for Buck Showalter. Interesting, huh?
Yeah, the short sighting of Richard Hammerbush III. That's that's real disrespectful at an age and not hire Dick. But Eric Chavez, have fun. He's having fun on Twitter. He's an IG thought now. He's doing his Instagram lives, having fun. He's doing what he's having fun.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
So, on that note. Yeah, again, I've already, today I discussed my preliminary, spring training trip. So I can't wait for that place to be empty because the fan base hates all the team. It's good for me. Everybody hates each other. That means spring training for me is going to be nice and empty for autographs. So, David, keep doing it. Keep pissing the fan base off because it makes my job getting autographs a hell of a lot easier with less fat, smelly dudes around the ballpark. So, thank you, David. Get all these fan favorites out of here. Get that place nice and empty because you know what? It makes me better. It makes it easy for me to get autographs and not have to trample smelly, fat kids and ogres. It's always better.
No polar burgers at spring training this year. What the fuck?
Hey,
that's the main reason as to why
shake,
that's why I'm going. and that's why I am going to be going to spring training, but in protest. I'm going to be out there picking signs, protesting this team for how awful they have treated us this offseason. And either way,
boycott City Field.
Yeah,
Boycott spring
boycott
training, City Field.
Yeah,
No.
boycott City Field.
I want to be able to go to a game and not, make sure I get a giveaway. I mean, yeah, piss everybody off. I want all those good giveaways. Just stay home, man.
Everyone loves a good villain. What can I say? I do. I love a good villain. Sometimes I play the villain.
Boycott the
Mika
entire
Zibanejad was
Stones
a
and
hell of
Cohen
a villain.
family.
He's doing good today.
He's not a villain. He's a victim. Okay.
True. That's true.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. If you're watching and listening on playback, you want to join the conversation live in the future, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel. Turn on those post notifications to not miss when we do go live, which is at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday during the off season. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok. Follow all of us individually. The links are in the description, along with Evan and Matt, our special guests this week. And yeah, Mets, MLB, off season, speed up, please. This has been very boring and slow.
Sleepy
And of
Stearns,
course-
wake up.
Sleepy Stearns, wake up, and Sleepy MLB, please wake up. That would be nice. Let's go Mets, and we will see you guys next time.